and Reggie DeLuca. So the agenda is before you. Do we have any additions or deletions at this time? Go ahead, Mr. Reeves.
I'd like to add under the agenda item for the Mueller House remodel new roof, a B item, to look at the a bid for the Ryder House as well for the roof. We do have some leaks in that roof and it needs attention as well. And we did get a bid from contractor.
Okay. So we'll add that under a business item.
Business item 2B, I guess. Or you want to make it 3?
I just make it 3. Is it okay, Mr. Winslow?
Yep, that's good. A3.
Okay, so all those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public comment.
Oh, I just got a question. What's going on 6 mile north of the dump there by the power line, all them dirt piles?
Maybe Dave, if you want to address it, I mean, I could address it, but sure.
So there's the job on 275, the road rebuild on 275.
Uh-huh.
They're bringing that dirt in and we'll use that as cover dirt.
Okay, well, it looks like you're excavating a little bit.
We're taking some of the
Taking
dirt
some out?
out, taking some
okay.
out, and we're hauling it up to landfill for cover.
All right.
So we're just stockpiling it for cover because
Okay, no, I understand that.
we need dirt, so
Yeah,
let them bring that in and
Okay.
then we use it for cover, but we don't have enough room on the other side.
good idea.
Thanks, Paul. Bonnie,
Who's in charge of building this driveway out here that the fire trucks go on?
who's in charge?
Yeah, you're ultimately in charge, but who's in charge?
Who'd I put in charge?
Yeah.
We hired the contractor to do it. You mean, who's the guy overseeing?
I wanna know who's going to make it good, because it's starting to break off at the edges.
Yeah, have you, anybody seen that?
It's
Rich?
where they pulled the steel forms, and they're gonna take care of, they're gonna saw cut it there. But they're gonna come probably 4 feet in to do a drain, when the
They
county
put it
comes
down,
through.
now they're gonna cut it up and take it up again?
No, the county's gonna have to come in and ditch it there. So they're gonna come in a little bit, but where it cracked at the end there, it's because they pulled the forms, the metal forms, and it cracked probably, I don't know, 16 inches down. Is that what you're talking about, Bonnie?
It's cracked about that long and goes in like a half a moon.
Yep. Comes in about 3 inches, about 12 inches long.
Right,
Yeah, at the end, at the corner over here, yeah, I've seen that, and I already been in touch with Steve Roma. And
okay,
Steve's gonna
now,
fix
you
it.
brought up an interesting point.
Oh.
You said the county's gonna go in and cut it all up again and
Well,
put
no,
a
they're
ditch
just,
under it.
they're gonna have to come in at one point and do the drainage possibly, I shouldn't say that they're going to, but.
It's something I would have gotten straight before we put the cement down. And then you would have had not known, everybody either would have known, or you wouldn't have had to put the cement down until they got the county in there. Never mind, I just thought it was bad news that a brand new
No, it's-
driveway was breaking up.
It's just where they pulled the form, it's just a small piece.
It's just a small piece today, wait till you run over it 3 times with one of those monster trucks we own.
All right. Okay.
Well, I think Steve,
Roma.
Steve Roma, I'm sure he's aware of it and needs to address
I'll
it
take care
and
of
just
it.
let us know. Would be helpful, because it shouldn't be cracked, or it could crack more, so. Thank you, Bonnie. Anybody else? Yes.
I was hoping to request like an ROI for the Washtenaw County that we used. I know that was last month it was, or this year, excuse me, I know it was said that we spent about $330,000 to use them. We had brought up the concerns with just some breaking in that's
Right.
continuing, it's actually escalating.
Right.
So I was hoping to get like at least some kind of, to see exactly what they're doing, that they're not able to respond to this growing concern that we have right
Right.
in Hamlet.
Well, we can address it maybe here a little bit late, but we are meeting with them, coming along with the state police,
Okay,
to
great.
give us their meeting dates I was available, but they weren't available. And they were gonna sit and address, to talk to get the addresses, the names of the individuals who were having these problems. I know some of the houses, and I think you know them too, I think we all know them.
Yeah, they had followed up with the police and they had said they couldn't identify the suspects, so it was like
Yeah.
a cold case. It's not, they were caught
Well-
today, 5 of them trying to break in again, it's just, it's a daily occurrence
Right,
now.
but
so
it's,
then try not to-
it's uncontrollable, parents. that-
Right,
And-
but, I mean, we gotta
and-
get a, do we need to get a security guard for, I mean, it's ridiculous.
No, it is, but we have to, first, what the, I don't know if you know, can't think of his name, Flores, he's the lieutenant of Washtenaw County. So he's putting it together, the meeting together, and they will, address who the homes are and who they are, and then they need to have conversations with them and hold them accountable for the kids and to press charges against them because they are minors, and about the curfew, the hours and everything that they're out there. But some of the ones that I know, I mean, the damage that they've done to the township and the other, and I'm sure they've done a lot of stuff that we don't even know about.
They were just caught, was it today, trying to break in the window?
Yeah, we're getting quite the list.
Yeah.
So, that's
No,
all.
keep it
I guess
together,
that's premature
and I
asking,
think,
I guess.
and what I had said to them is that when they put together, I would like to, and maybe I can get a hold of you, and you can also have some of the other residents that can help with this to be at the meeting. I would like to have you guys there too, which I think would be helpful, just because there might be some stuff that we don't know. I mean, I can relay it, but it's always good to have other people,
Perfect, okay.
once they
We'll
know
start there.
our residents are. But I will get that, but I want to get both of them together, because we do a lot for the state police, I feel, by giving them this house over here, and they want to help us. So, I mean, that's what they say. So I think this is a case where I'd like to have both of them working together. Okay,
Appreciate it, thank you.
all right. All right, anybody else? Yes?
Are they ever gonna pave, 6 mile between Chubb and Napier? That was terrible. And the corner of Napier and
Yes.
6 mile is horrible. You ever gonna do that?
You know, I really don't think so. In their long-range plans, when I've had meetings with the county, it's kind of slated in there, but because of, you know, our landfill, you know, whatever, I think, because of, I think Chubb Road being paved and, you know, everybody's kind of using that route now, I think they're just waiting to see what's gonna happen with the future of the landfill. Now, that's my opinion. And I think that's why they haven't, and I don't know if you've complained to the county, Dave, but we have, when I have these meetings with them, it's like, we've kind of touched every road since this board has been in office, where every road has really been kind of touched, you know, as far as, I think we started with the North Territorial one, whatever, and we lost our shirts on that. We kind of gambled and lost. But it needed to be done, and I think most of the roads, when you drive our main roads around here, are not that bad in shape. Some of the dirt roads still need to, I don't know what to do about Chubb Road that further down, it's just, I don't know how much money you can put into that, it's just not, it needs to be all reformed, because it's not, it doesn't drain properly, and we have a few people there that I just feel horrible about their homes, because it just, when it does get a lot of rain, it just floods their houses. But it's low, you know, their houses are built low, but, so we're trying to figure out something to try to help them, so. All right, anything else? Okay, good comments, thank you. So now we're down to consent agenda.
All right, I move that,
Oh, our attorney's here.
I tried to hide you.
Look, our famous attorney. Welcome, Ed.
all right. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of September 13th, 2022, regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. We have disbursements for September of the general fund of $124,672.45, a payroll of $56,576.72, paychecks of $342.92, sewer fund $8,789.22. The MEDC fund, we had disbursements of $689,967.54. So for the invoices for the month of October, out of the general fund, $48,094.37, sewer fund, $8,745.82, escrow fund, $10,478.25, and lastly, the MEDC fund invoices, $57,665.09. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Any other comments on the consent agenda? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's passed. All right, down to business items. Drain assessment resolution.
All right.
Mr. Wensley?
So we will make a motion to approve this resolution 2022-10-12.01. Whereas the following drains will be assessed on the 2022 tax roll to property owners in Salem Township by the Wayne County Drain Commissioner. And whereas the state drain code allows townships to pay drainage assessments from the general fund or other legally available funds. And whereas the entire township derives benefits from the control of surface water by the county drainage system, now therefore be it resolved that Salem Township agrees to pay the property owner's share, in addition to our share, of the above drain assessments in an amount not to exceed $30,000 as a general fund disbursement in lieu of placing the drain assessments on the winter 2022 tax roll. And you can see the amounts on the motion here. Do we have a second on these?
I'll second it.
All right, Bruce seconds it. Just for some of you, I mean, most of you know, but the township always covers, as in the history, the Salem has covered the assessed that the county puts on the residents that would be shared, that go in the Nelson Drain, the Fleming Creek. I'm not real sure about the Salem Village tile. I didn't see anything. Where are they talking about that?
It's just a line item that they.
And I would think that would probably be the repairs that were done here where there was east of the tracks on the north side. Actually, the pole was caving in. There was a bunch of sinkholes over there, so that's probably where that came in. And so, in Lampton Lakes Estates, so that's the total of nearly $30,000. So that's, any questions on it, board members? If not, I think we should have a roll call vote on this.
Daniel?
Yep.
DeLuca is absent, and McLaughlin?
Yes.
Reeve?
Yes.
Trent is absent, and Wensley, yes, and Whitaker?
Yes. Okay, down to the Mueller House remodel, the new roof and framing of the pitch, chimney, side door, soffit repair bit. So we did receive some bids on, now again, this is the house by the Parco here, as they call it, the Mueller House. And so the idea is trying to fix this building up, to put the state police, move them out, to have them more present out on 6 Mile instead of tucked back here. So that's been our goal for a long time, and we're just trying to get this done. We did receive some bids on doing the whole place. I believe, Rich, help me with this, weren't they 300 and some odd thousand?
High threes.
high threes, for that place. And, you know, then you start thinking about it, what it costs today to build a new house. It is really up there too. So it's like, so then we started looking at doing some bidding or getting some bids for just, you know, like little projects, like, not little projects, but big projects, like doing the roof, getting bids on that, doing siding and just trying to piecemeal it that way to see if the pricing comes out better. So, we did get some bids on the roof of the Mueller house, to put a metal roof on there, take the old roof off. Rich, you're actually been working on this, so if you'd like to, you wanna comment on it? I mean, I can read it, it's removing all existing roofing materials. Oh, this is the Ryder house. Where's the, so,
That's-
yeah, this is the most recent one. Remove all the existing roofing materials. Repair tuck point of the brick in the chimney, which is, it needs a lot of repair. The ice guard the entire roof, remove and replace ridge vents. Re-roof with hidden fasteners of the metal roofing, the new drip range, the drip edge. Reframe the small rear roof to existing, up to match the existing pitch of the roof. Install a new rear door. Install a new soffit with final vented soffit. Cover all fascia with custom bent aluminum. Total labor was $36,000.
That also includes the front porch also.
Right.
So you get the new porch, you know,
Right.
the roof of the porch.
Right. So, the other bids came in, I think as high as 41,000. Anyway, so that's kinda
Yeah,
what's,
these are the other two.
right, the others was 41,500, but there's a lot more that he's doing on this.
Wow.
Now, is this the same guy that did some work for us over here with the porch?
But it's not Stephen Killer Deck, it's the contractors. that
Right, the
contract.
contractors that did it, which they did a fabulous job. I
Beautiful
don't know if
job.
you've seen the Ryder house, how that looks with the railings and everything, so. So, Reeves, Mr. Reeves, you have the motion and you can make it.
Okay,
Discuss
I
it.
move that Salem Township, just reiterate, approve the bid from R&B Old School Carpentry in the amount of $36,000 for the Mueller House roof and door project, as detailed out by Mr. Whitaker. R&B Old School will include the roofing, removal of the old roof, repair the chimney, replace the ridge vent, install a new metal roof, install a new side door, install a new vent, cover all the fascia and the aluminum trim and clean up at $36,000. Can I get a second for that motion? Please.
I'll second. Okay. John seconds it. Any other discussion, board members? I guess I got ahead of myself with explaining it before.
You did discussion beforehand, but that's all right.
Saves time.
But, you know, this will, we keep looking at the inside, I don't know how long it's been, any of you been into the Mueller house in there. Actually, the inside is not that bad. Just doing some painting and some, maybe getting some new windows and new siding out there. I think we'll be able to do it for pretty reasonable to get it to look an attractive another building that will be on 6 Mile, to improve the hamlet. I think it will go a long way with, then if you can get this other guy that's got this other building over here straightened out, it will go a long way too. So we're on him. Big time.
Slumlord.
Yes, well. So, yes,
You're not trying to keep it into the historical vision of the hamlet then, are you?
well, I think it will look historic the way I picture it, I'm not saying it's gonna be, you know, it's not a house that, I don't know what year it was built, but, it's kind of like, the house, is it Michelle? That, the new house that, the greenhouse that they
I just
redid?
wondered, for a long time, they were trying to keep everything in the hamlet be historical and
Right.
make it a historical area, but that's
Yeah.
gone then.
No, I don't know that, I mean, I think the historic look needs to still be there, and I think we're all conscious, I think our
You
whole
put a metal
community.
roof on it, right?
Yeah. and-
It's not historic anymore.
Well, the old farmhouses had metal roofs,
Yeah,
so,
but that's not a farmhouse,
well,
it's a city house.
It was a farmhouse before they built houses around it.
anyway, so, anyway, any other comments or questions on it? Okay, so it's before us, so we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion's passed. Okay, so, one that was added to the agenda is the Ryder House. Bruce, do you have a motion to make on this, or you wanna discuss it first? Let's talk about it a little bit first, I think.
Yeah. Okay, again, Richard did, well, let's just start with, the Briar House is, up behind us here. It's, 3-tab shingle, quite a few shingles are missing. We store, building department documents, prints and things up there, and, Ann has, gone up there a number of times, and there's damp and wet prints, so the roof is obviously leaking now, so it's in need of repair and actually replacement, because there's just too many missing shingles right now, to repair it effectively, so, at this point, it makes good sense to, see if we can get an extra discount price using the same, R&B old carpentry for doing that roof as well, to match the roof on the Mueller House.
If I can just add anything, do we know if there's any damage to the roof from leaking? And if there is, are they covering any of that,
The ceiling?
of the roof? Like, are they gonna peel the old shingles off?
Everything's coming off,
Right.
both homes, everything.
But I mean, what about the wood underneath?
If it needs to be replaced, I'll replace it.
Right.
And I'll be down here, I'll make sure, and Bruce will be here.
Yeah.
Anything that needs to be replaced, we'll make sure it's done. We'll watch them rip everything off and get back together.
Okay. Any other questions about it?
If you're talking about roofs, you might wanna start looking about up here.
Up above here?
I can get a quote on this one right now, too. Do them all in metal.
And I think,
Yeah.
when we were doing the bathrooms, I went up there and I could see daylight out through the vents up there. It doesn't show like it's been leaking.
Do you know, does anybody know when it was re-roofed? Because I thought Dave Trent said it was,
Fred
did
it. Yeah, it was back in 2000, 2004, someplace in that
You seen damage upstairs inside?
area. No. Well, there was, before we tore the walls out, there was a lot of damage in the ceilings, stuff like that.
It's gonna rain tonight, we can always look around with the flashlight in the morning.
You can sleep up there and.
No, I come down in the morning.
all right.
I get you a flashlight, you camp out tonight, I see you in the morning.
All right, Bruce, you want to make a motion on that?
Okay,
This is
I
true.
would like to make a motion that Salem Township accept the bid from R&B Old School Carpentry to remove all existing roofing materials, apply ice guard to the entire roof, install new drip edge, reflash chimney and all plumbing stacks, install new ridge vents, install new metal roofing with hidden fasteners, and I do have, Richard got specifications if anybody's interested on the materials being supplied. For labor and material price of $31,500.
Okay, we have a second?
I'll second.
PJ seconds. Any more discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now, what color? Yeah, okay. So anyway, we'll figure that out, so.
Something that looks natural.
Okay. Sounds good. We're on a roll. The parking lot looks, hopefully everybody took a look at that. It looks nice. The brick pavers look good. It looks like a new place. It really looks clean. I seen them putting the rock there along the side and it looks really good. Yeah. So, good job, Richard.
No, that's the contract.
No, I know.
Hey, but since we're talking about that, I wanted to thank Dave from
Yeah,
landfill.
yeah,
Not the
absolutely.
dump, the landfill, because he took down the garage, yesterday,
Yeah.
and the existing concrete over there. Cleaned it
Yeah,
up
so
real
if you
nice.
haven't seen that by the side of the Mueller house, we thought about fixing that, but it was in disrepair, falling apart, and it just wasn't worth it. So, but again, it kind of opens that up back there with our other parking lot for the state police to have the pass-through through there, and then just to have the cars more out in the front. And I think it'll look good once it gets done.
Yeah, and also Dave brought
I have a
down,
quick one.
Yeah.
Does a metal roof affect the reception of a cell phone? I've noticed that up north at some things, how, our, my sister's,
Yeah.
sister-in-law's house, that's,
Here, Nate.
Metal roof, your phone number,
Yeah.
gotta go inside you.
Yeah.
that's,
Will that matter here?
Well, I have them in my buildings and stuff, and there's an extension on there that you can put on that it actually helps it. But I'm saying sometimes, depending what service you have, but, you know, it has a lot to do with it. But there are things that you can put on there to help. to make
you're
sure.
aware of that, in other words?
Yeah.
That would be a problem for residents coming into it.
My mother has a metal roof on Federick and we don't have any
Oh,
broken.
right? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we have not.
But I'm saying sometimes,
Yeah.
with the area you're in and the carrier, you
Okay.
know, but then you can add these other things on outside of the building to help with the reception, and it does help,
Okay.
but thank you. Okay, so we're down to, financials, there's none, and, the chief's report.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just, I'd like to report to the board that the call volumes for the month of September are double what they normally are. Call volumes overall for the year are up for services, so, I know it's just been a busy year, it's been a busy month, so hopefully things start settling down, but, we'll see. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you, chief. Okay, general township updates. Mr. Plato, any updates for us? You should have a lot for us now.
Well, we do have a date for oral arguments in the Court of Appeals on the Salem Springs litigation that's ongoing there. The date is November 3rd. However, the attorney for Salem Springs is not going to be available that day, so he has asked for that date to be adjourned, but hopefully it'll only be adjourned a week or so and not keep dragging this on, so. That's the primary updates. We'll be able to, present our arguments, why we should be able to go through Superior Township and see what the Court of Appeals does as a result.
Yes.
Just a question, I heard that the letter from the State Department, the Eagle, was not allowed to be used. You would think that because it's a state, it's not just like some third party, it's their own state letter. You would think that could be used, but it can't?
Well, the rules are, the court rules are for when you handle an appeal or put an appeal into the Court of Appeals, the record's supposed to be made in the trial court, in the lower court. And generally, the Court of Appeals will only consider evidence or testimony that was presented in the lower court, or in this case, the Washtenaw Circuit Court. So we filed a motion to ask the Court of Appeals to open the record and allow us to submit this letter from Eagle. The letter was very favorable to the township, saying that the state does prefer townships to have regional sewer systems, not local wastewater treatment plants. So we asked the Court of Appeals to let us open the record to consider that letter, but that motion was denied, unfortunately. We did, however, though, as part of our original briefing and in the trial court, we did submit a letter that we had, not a letter, an email that we had from the state, kind of saying the same thing, not as long of an explanation, but briefly saying that the state does prefer regional sewer systems and would prefer the connection to Yucca over a local wastewater treatment plant. So at least it's in the record, we can still argue that. We just don't have that very nice letter that we got from Eagle from the state to present to the court.
And evidently, I don't know if you had heard that the chief of the Eagles is supposed to have a meeting with Ken and I.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
So
good.
that's the latest. So I haven't heard from him yet.
Maybe that'll be productive.
Right.
Maybe they'll just roll over and give in.
Wow.
So we'll see how that goes. But it's really, I mean, to me, it's something to, whatever, say it or not say it, but I think it's something for our community that we need to pray about. It's just, it would be very disappointing for me, and I think for all of us, that if we have to have, a huge wastewater treatment plant, it just wouldn't be the right thing, I mean, in my opinion, and I think we need to figure some way to get, so we're not into that. We have, for the hamlet, which, we had a SAW grant, they did a study on it, and it talked about, it's gonna cost the township, I don't know, $3-4 million of the improvements here down the road. And, it's just crazy, it's not, we don't have the capacity to it. We just got a bill that Eagle is making us put in, it was a couple $100,000 repair bill. And the sewer bills that people get here in the hamlet are nowhere near paying, they're high, and they're nowhere near paying, so, most communities pass it on to the community, to the people who are paying the sewer bills. And we just need to figure out how to get out of that wastewater treatment plant and figure out how to get it to the sewer, in my opinion. We just really need to, we need to pray about it. That's what I've been doing, so we'll see what happens. So any other comments about the USD, the dewatering project that they're doing on the north side between M14 and Territorial has been completed. So now the next will be starting on the south side, which won't start till next year. So that's kind of where we're at.
Just advises, I'm not sure if at the last meeting we knew that the grant completion dates had been extended.
Right.
So they all have been extended now to December 31st of 2023.
And the new one, have we seen anything on the new one?
We have not seen anything on the new one.
Right. But anyway. So we're waiting to hear for that. Okay, so anything else? I think any other updates? If not, we're down to public comment, right? Yes, Bonnie.
What day is election day?
November 8th,
What day is the next meeting?
the week after. So it'll be the third Tuesday instead of the second Tuesday.
And that date would be the 15th?
Yes.
Thank you.
Of November.
Of November,
Right. And then it's Thanksgiving, can you believe it?
It's only be Thanksgiving if all the Republicans get in.
Sorry for that.
I say that?
Linda.
At the last meeting, I talked about the need for a fire code board of appeals. And we talked about how that several times to the planning commission, Jim has submitted his wish list. And I'd like to know what's the status to have a fire code board of appeals. When you have someone like Jim, who consistently comes forward with things that are wrong. Walked into a planning commission probably a year or more ago, and he wanted the right to go into anybody's home for a diminutive amount of hazardous materials. By definition, diminutive means a non-reportable quantity. That means everybody in this room, we have non-reportable quantities of hazardous materials. Some of us have propane grills. That propane tank, the propane in the tank is a diminutive amount of a hazardous material. And I shared the standards that night, and the planning commission, once again in their wisdom, did not go along with Jim's ludicrous recommendation that he should have the right to go into anybody's house. We've at least twice, when I've been in a planning commission meeting, we've had a wish list from him where he wants sites totally reviewed, totally changed for what's a minor site plan revision. And anytime that you have an official who renders decisions, you have to have an appeal process. And if you look online, many communities that have adopted NFPA 1, NFPA 101, and other codes have a fire code board of appeals. When the township adopted NFPA 1 and NFPA 1, they did so indeed have that appeals board. Brian Wachowski and Reggie DeLuca were members of that original board. Brian Wachowski doesn't live in the community, therefore he can't be on it. So I'd like to know what's the status, who is on it, and if there is no board, at what point will that be adopted? Because I think as long as we, the public, whether we're people who live here or we're businesses that operate here, we need to have the right to come in and have a voice of reason, to be able to come in and say, did you see the wish list? Did you see this document that we were given? It doesn't reference any code, doesn't tell us where these wishes are coming from, but we have the right to come in and appeal so that we can have, and we're very fortunate here, again, you guys have got a great planning commission that are people of common sense. And so they were able to handle it, but I think you do need to have, if he's going to be allowed to continue to write things like his wish list, that we have a fire code board of appeals. So I'd like to know its status, if you would address it, Gary, if we're gonna have it, and when you think you would appoint people to it. Thank you.
I'll make, any other comments? Okay, if not, so I will address that if I can, my comments. So, as of right now, unless this board wants to override me, I am not gonna have that kind of committee. Again, I don't think there's been one thing in 10 years since I've been the supervisor. If anybody in this community has a problem with anything, and that could be a business owner, resident, or whatever, that we haven't addressed it and we haven't made it right. And I, not to say I'm doing everything right, but I think that we are sensitive to the fact that when people come in, I think Dave here with GFL, I think he knows that there's things over there that there might be, and again, if it's Jim's wish list or whatever he thinks, these things can be done, but I can honestly say Jim and I disagree on some things, but we've always made it right, and there's always been issue that comes up that is handled, and it's handled properly, and I don't think any resident or business has walked away in disarray of any decisions that the fire department has made or this board has made. But again, I'm open up to this board if they feel that's what we need. I'll support them. But I think, Linda, I told you that that during the planning and the engineering, anything that the fire department does write up a request, that it would not be into the form of the planning commission, that it would be addressed between the fire chief and myself to handle it, and we'd all be kind of on the same page of any issue that comes up that needs to be in a set of plans. And it can be for the new development that's at Goverson Road, or anything, even what GFL's done with this new power plant that's going on. I think we've worked with you guys, and there's a lot of things that Jim could ask for or say whatever, but again, we have to be in reason, and we wanna work with our community. And not, I'm not trying to build up Jim, all I'm saying is that he's listened to what we have said, and there might be other communities that would be over the top, like a lot of communities are. But we wanna work with our people, and I think, we do stuff to make sure that it's safe, it's reasonable, and I just haven't seen, and, you know, I could be wrong, but I just, hopefully that can address some of the stuff, Linda, so.
I guess, Gary, the concern is that quite often when it comes up at a planning commission meeting, I'm the voice of reason because I have that knowledge base. Who's the advocate for the people that don't know? That don't know that there's a difference between what's required and what a wish list is. You expect of all your other consultants, when they submit a report, I assume, and we don't see what your attorney sends you, because much of it's attorney-client privilege, but he references case law, he references decisions, he references the law itself to give you good advice. When your engineers write a report, they reference standards. And some of that is so that you can go back and you can look, is this a reasonable interpretation of the standards? Your zoning consultant, he does the same thing. He references the ordinance itself, he tells you the section he's referencing. So you know you have a correct interpretation. Why is it that fire safety gets a free pass and they're not required to do that same reference? You have adopted NFPA 1 and NFPA 101 in the past. The purpose of that is so that there is a standard in this community, whether it's the landfill with their new construction, whether it's a library, whether it's people building homes. But why is it that when it comes from the fire department, first of all, it shouldn't be done in private, it should be done in public. We all have the right to know. Fire and life safety affects every single one of us in this room. If you go to any one of our golf courses, the safety things that they do affect each one of us as we visit. If you go to Fox Hills for a meal, or you go to Salem Hills for a meal, there's means of ingress and egress, and that's to keep us safe. There's a capacity load, that's again, so that if there's an emergency, we can get in and out. Why wouldn't you have whatever requirements are coming from Jim be just as public? And that they reference, at the very least, he'd be required to reference code. And I appreciate, Gary, that you're always willing to work with people, but if he's formally doing this, why is it informal how this component works? I mean, you're asking people to spend sometimes a lot of money to comply, whether it's your building code or it's fire code. And I think that they ought to be handled the same way. If you build a home in Salem Township, you have to do certain things. And your electrical engineer tells you what code you're following, tells you where in the code you need to do certain things. Same thing with your mechanical inspector. Why is the fire different?
Well, I think that a lot of codes that come up on new buildings that Jim would reference, I feel that they're important and we want to follow the code. But if there are other things that come up, and I would say like the library, we had some issues there. There's a lot of things that, hey, anybody would say, okay, if it's the turnaround or whatever, but if it's something that the people want to talk about, we talk about it and we address it and we make, and everybody seems that I know of has walked away and have been happy about it. Yeah, Bonnie.
You don't do it in a public way, and I already had a date or a meeting with you and with Jim and Brian Lukowski, and I never was satisfied with that meeting. I just gave up because.
What was it about?
It was about the time when the fire had rekindled in somebody's house once or twice.
Okay, I'm talking about code. I'm not talking about a fire. I'm talking about,
Well,
anything that's being built that you want a committee to put together to address something, I think we've addressed it and people have walked away happy about it. Now, if it's something the way he's handling fire or something like that, then you might be talking about something different, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about code. At the planning commission we had here, it was an embarrassment that people have to come in here and for a small site plan to see what they had to go through. But that's not only from our fire chief, that's from our consultants that did a horrible job putting that together. And I am embarrassed about that, and that is not right, because if we don't have the right consultants doing this stuff, we need to get rid of them. And I'm just saying, we have really worked with our residents and our businesses. I think we have. I mean, we don't have a lot of them, but I think in the building department, and when there's a problem, we talk about it. Guy today, you said that I said he didn't need a building permit. It's just not true. But what he did is he wanted to add another garage. He has to get another building permit. I talked to Dave Harriman, and it just seems like every issue that comes up, we seem to be able to handle. We're not. I could be missing something, but yes. Lynn.
Why is it unreasonable that when we get a report from Jim, that he has to reference the code requirement that he claims that you're not meeting? Why is that unreasonable?
I don't know what is it, Jim? What codes are we talking about?
NFPA 1 and NFPA 101.
I'll just talk to you in the sidebar.
Okay,
It's
well-
not a public debate.
All right, well,
Well, actually, with all due respect, Mr. Supervisor, it is a public issue. Some of us in this room sit on public bodies, and there should be a standard of requirement, a professional standard of requirement for reports from this township. When you come in with a proposal, and you've hired, particularly if you're a business or like the library, you've hired a consultant, you're not doing it on your own. And to your reference point, everybody doesn't always get it right, but you've hired them, and so they get a report that has these, again, as I'm gonna say, a wish list, because that's what the report says, I wish, I wish, I wish. And there's no standard to it, so you can't have your consultant that you've hired go back and say, okay, this section of the code, and it's a very detailed code. I don't have the newest book, but I have an older book at home, and I'd be happy to bring it in and sit down and show it to you. But what's wrong with having that referenced is you're trying to, as the applicant, work with your architect or work with your engineer, because just like the township wants it done right, so do most organizations, most businesses, they want it done right. But it's very hard to be able to come back in and say, is this a correct interpretation? And again, I'm gonna give you an example from the building department when the library was built. The building inspector said the roof material had to be non-com plywood, non-combustible plywood. Cost the library 20-some years ago $10,000 more. And so the architect who designed the library looked at it and he said, the way that we interpret that code is that when you have buildings close, you want the non-combustible roofing material so that fire can't jump from one roof to another. Okay, the library sits on the middle of almost 15 acres. There are no other buildings around it. Is that a correct interpretation? The architect for the library was able to go to a board and talk to them about that decision. At the end of the day, it is a decision of the local official. But when we were told that, we were told, again, it was building code, we were told the section of the building code that was being interpreted. Most of your consultants, they know some of the code, but they're not fluent in all of these different codes. So what's unreasonable about saying in the future, and I don't care whether you're doing it informally or you're doing it in front of a meeting, that these reports reference the code? What is so unreasonable about that?
So I guess I don't know what codes have not been.
When Jim writes his wish list, that's what he does, writes a wish list. And what I'm requesting he does in the future, he wanted and we'll go to the storage place, he wanted a fire break. It's probably not a bad thing to actually want the fire break. I mean, those travel trailers are parked very close. What section of the code says that there should be a fire break? Jim also wanted a second means of ingress or egress. What section of the code requires that? So that then your applicant can go back and read that and say, yes, I believe that it's applicable to what I'm bringing forward, or well, I don't believe it's applicable. And then when they come to the meeting, if the meeting is with you, and Gary, it's great while you're the supervisor, but I don't think you hold the position for life, and I kind of don't think you want it for life from what you've told me in the past. But why not have a practice that simply says whether it's your zoning official who says, okay, this section of the ordinance, your project, you need to look at it, you're not applicable, or your fire code's not applicable.
So
What's the issue that the fire department, and particularly Jim, doesn't have to include that code? In the code, again, it's adopted by the township as NFPA 1 and NFPA 101. And I would suspect that if we've adopted those codes, that those books should be here at the township so that somebody can flip through it. I mean, again, I have older copies of them, and they've been revised slightly, but they're substantially still correct.
So Jim, am I it right to say that when there's anything written up on anything else coming in, that you can reference a code to it, the reason why you're asking for it?
So Ms. Hamilton alludes to the fact that there has to be an appeals board. So I'm reluctant to write up something and direct a business to do that without a means of appealing. So you can't have one without the other, so you cannot reference a write-up and instantiate it without an appeals board, as Ms. Hamilton has alluded to. So as we've talked before.
But I thought we already adopted the code.
We have, but the code requires, as Ms. Hamilton has alluded to, you have to have an appeals board. So if I write them up in official records that you have to do that, then there has to be a means to appeal that. So you can't have one without the other. So if the board.
But you've already adopted the code.
Well, the code was
Right.
adopted well before this board. The code was adopted probably 15 years ago. So the code mandates that it has to have an appeals board if you write something up. So it's kind of the chicken and the egg, you have to have both. So I'm going to be reluctant to write up a business and cite a code if they don't have a means to appeal it. So as we've worked in the past, we talked to the business, we discussed our concerns, and most of the time, they understand the rationale behind it, and they proceed forward in an avenue that's agreeable to both parties.
Okay, Linda?
So Jim proves my point that your code requires you to have an appeals board, no matter how you've operated, you're required to have it. An argument I think now could be made, since this is a public meeting, it's gonna be posted online, that according to Jim, and again, whether he's accurate or not, we'd have to look at, but if indeed the code requires an appeal board and you don't have one, I'm not gonna address the jeopardy or risk, you have an attorney for that, but I wanna address something else that I have asked numerous times in the past, that I be referred to either as Linda or Mrs. Hamilton. And I have personally told that to Jim, and I find it extremely disrespectful when I have been married in excess of 45 years, for Jim to consistently, when he does address me in public, to do it wrong. And once again, I request that he apologize for this continued disrespect that he shows me.
Okay, anything else? Yes.
Just for clarification of what he was saying, so what you're saying is since there's not an appeal board, you don't reference the code specifically because there's nothing for the resident or the builder to adhere to, so you're doing informal? Is that why, so it's more of an informal format? Is that?
I don't know if I quite paraphrase it in the way you have. It's been discussions and reviews that, with the building, and for the most part, all the submittals that we get, they're PE'd stamps, so they're in the majority of compliance with fire rules. So-
But if you reference that in your report, then there has to be an appeal.
Correct, I can't force you, it'd be like me writing a speeding ticket and then you not having a way to say, hey, I wasn't speeding.
Got it.
Okay, anything else? All right, well, thank you for being here tonight. It actually lasted an hour. So, thanks for all the comments, and hope you have a great time. Make sure